Damn mutt looks just like its owner. Wild and out of place. Officer Breener sneered as his cruiser rolled down Oak Haven Drive, sunlight glinting off perfect white fences. To him, the little black girl in the red hoodie didn't belong there, just another problem waiting to happen. When her German shepherd, Shadow, barked once in defense, Breener pulled the trigger without hesitation. The dog fell instantly. 9-year-old Aria Daniels dropped to her knees, tears streaking her cheeks, hands trembling as she pointed her mother's pistol at the cops. What Breener didn't know was that her mother, FBI Special Agent Renee Daniels, was already racing home, and she would destroy them for what they had done. The late Georgia's sun painted long shadows across the neat lawns. Aria tossed a bright yellow tennis ball into the air, watching it arc through the golden evening light. Shadow bounded after it, his strong legs carrying him across the grass with the energy only dogs knew. Good boy, Aria cheered as he trotted back, dropping the slobbery ball at her feet. Their backyard was her world. It was where she still felt her father's presence, where memories of him playing fetch with her seemed to float in the warm air. Shadow had been his last gift before the accident, and to Aria, every throw of the ball was a promise to keep his memory alive. As she bent to throw again, a patrol car crept down the street like a shark testing the water. Aria had seen police drive by before. After all, it was a quiet, upscale neighborhood. But this time, the cruiser slowed, then stopped. 2 officers stepped out. The older one's nameplate read Breener. His partner, a younger man with nervous eyes, hung back. "Hey, you there," Breener barked. His tone wasn't friendly, it was the kind of voice used to command, not to question. Aria froze, the ball still in her hand. Shadow sat beside her, alert but calm. "What are you doing on this property?" Breener demanded, his hand resting casually on his holster. I live here," Aria said, her small voice trying to sound brave. "This is my house." "Sure you do," Breener scoffed. "We got a call about a suspicious person. Gonna need to see some ID." "I'm 9, Aria said, her heart beating fast. "I don't have ID, but this is my house." "Listen here," Breener cut her off, his tone sharper now. "We don't need attitude. Step away from the dog." Shadow's ears flattened. A low growl rumbled in his chest as the officer took a step closer. "Shadow," Aria whispered nervously, but her loyal protector stayed firm. His hackles rose as Brenner's hand hovered over his gun. "Call off your dog," Breener shouted, drawing his weapon. His partner followed, hands shaking. "He's not doing anything wrong," Aria cried. "We were just playing fetch. Please, this is my yard." Shadow barked, not in aggression, but in defense, standing between her and the armed men. The sound echoed across the manicured lawns as neighbors began peeking from porches, phones in hand. "Last warning." Brenner's face twisted in frustration. "Control that animal." "Shadow, come," Aria started, but her voice was drowned out by 3 sharp cracks that split the evening air. Shadow yelped, a sound Aria would never forget. The German shepherd stumbled, red blooming across his dark fur, before collapsing onto the grass. "No," Aria screamed. She dropped beside him, cradling his bleeding body. "Shadow, please, stay with me." The dog's breathing came in ragged gasps. His tail wagged once, weakly, before falling still. Aria pressed her small hands against his wounds, her tears mixing with his blood. "Stay back." Breener yelled, gun still pointed at her. But Aria didn't hear him. Her world had narrowed to Shadow's fading heartbeat under her trembling hands, her best friend, her protector, the last piece of her father, dying because a frightened cop pulled the trigger. The grief came first, then the rage. It burned through her tears, straightened her spine. "You killed him," she said quietly, her voice shaking but cold. "The animal was aggressive," Breener muttered. "He was protecting me from you," Aria snapped, her voice rising. Neighbors were watching now, phones recording. "Watch your tone, girl," Breener growled. "You killed him," she screamed, every word tearing through her chest. "He was all I had left of my daddy." Shadow's blood was warm on her hands. The setting sun caught Brenner's badge, gleaming like fool's gold. "On your feet now," Breener ordered, red-faced and angry that a child dared defy him. Aria didn't move. Her mother's words echoed in her head. "Never let bullies see you break." "I'm not moving," she said, voice trembling but steady. "You'll have to shoot me too." The crowd gasped. Brenner's partner looked pale. Sirens wailed in the distance, backup coming, but no one dared move. Arya's eyes darted toward the porch. Hidden behind a loose board was her mom's old backup pistol. She wasn't supposed to know it was there, but she'd seen her mom check on it late at night just in case. And this was just in case. She laid Shadow's head gently on the grass and crawled toward the porch, her fingers searching. Her hand found cold metal. "Gun," Briner shouted in panic. "Drop it. Drop the weapon." Arya rose slowly, the pistol trembling in her small hands. But her stance was steady, just like her mom had taught her at the range last summer. "Why did you kill my dog?" she cried. "Put the gun down, girl." Briner barked, trying to sound confident but shaking. "Worse," Arya laughed bitterly. "You killed my best friend. You came into my yard and murdered him. How could it get worse?" Sirens screamed closer now, painting red and blue flashes across the neighborhood. "Last warning," Briner shouted. "Drop it. You'll shoot me like you shot my dog?" Arya yelled back. "Go ahead. Show everyone what kind of cop you are." Phones recorded. Neighbors whispered. The child and the cop stood frozen to weapons raised under the dying sun. "Why did you kill my dog?" Arya screamed one last time. Brenner's lip curled. "That mutt was aggressive. He was protecting me," she cried, finger tight on the trigger. "From you." The flashing lights closed in. Backup units skidded to a stop. The air vibrated with chaos, guns raised, cameras rolling, a child standing in the middle of it all. And miles away, in a concrete FBI office, Arya's mother was about to find out what they had done. At the Atlanta FBI field office, Special Agent Renee Daniels was deep in an interrogation. The fluorescent lights buzzed faintly above as she leaned across the metal table toward a sweating drug trafficker. "So," she said calmly, "you weren't in Savannah last Tuesday." Her voice was steady, patient, and dangerous in its precision. "Because we have footage of your car at the port. Would you like to explain that?" The man stammered, searching for words, but before he could answer, Renee's phone buzzed. She ignored it. She never interrupted an interrogation. Then it buzzed again, and again. Her instincts prickled. Something was wrong. The door burst open. Agent Daniels. Her colleague Thompson's face was pale. "You need to hear this." She was on her feet instantly, following him to the dispatch monitoring room. Agents stepped aside as she entered, their faces tense. The dispatcher's voice crackled over the speakers, trembling. "All units, be advised, situation at 1247 Oak Haven Drive. Reports of a minor with a firearm. Officers on scene report the minor is holding them at gunpoint after an officer-involved shooting of a dog. Subject is approximately 9 years old." Renee's world tilted. Her address, her daughter's age. "That's my house," she whispered. Then louder, "That's my daughter." She didn't wait for clearance. She grabbed her keys and sprinted down the hallway. "Renee, wait." Thompson called after her. "Let the locals handle it. They're the ones pointing guns at my baby." She shouted back, not slowing. The elevator was too slow. She ran for the stairs, her footsteps echoing like thunder. Moments later, her government SUV roared out of the parking garage, siren blaring. Traffic parted, but not fast enough. Every red light felt like a lifetime. Her mind raced faster than the car. Arya's first steps. Her laugh when Shadow caught the ball. Her tiny hands gripping her father's casket flag at the funeral. Renee's husband, a soldier, gone years ago. Shadow had been his last gift. "To keep my girls safe," he'd said. Now he was gone. And Arya was surrounded by armed men who had already killed once today. "Please," Renee whispered through gritted teeth, weaving through traffic. "Please let me get there in time." She dialed the precinct. No answer. Dispatch busy signal. She slammed her fist against the steering wheel. Her daughter was strong too strong. Renee had taught her to never let bullies see her break, to stand her ground when she was right. But that strength could get her killed. For minutes. Another red light. She ignored it. Tires screeched as she swerved around traffic. 2 minutes. The flashing lights were visible now. Oak Haven Drive ahead. Sirens screamed from every direction. Renee's stomach twisted when she saw at her perfect suburban street turned into a battlefield. Police cruisers lined the road. Red and blue lights, painted the white fences in chaos. A crowd of neighbors had gathered behind yellow tape, their phones recording every second. And there, standing in the middle of her own front yard, was Arya. Small, brave, defiant. Her stance was steady, both hands gripping Renee's old pistol. Across from her, two officers aimed their weapons, Briner and his trembling partner. And between them on the grass lay Shadow, motionless. Renee's SUV screeched to a halt. For one suspended moment, the world froze. Then she was out of the car, her FBI badge raised high. "Federal agent, lower your weapons now." Her voice cut through the chaos, trained and commanding. But the officers didn't flinch. "Arya," she shouted, taking a step forward. "Stay back." Briner barked without lowering his gun. "The suspect is armed and dangerous. She's 9 years old," Renee roared. "And you just murdered her dog." The younger officer, Clay, glanced between them nervously. "Sir, maybe we should." "Quiet," Briner snapped. His eyes were wild. Renee's heart pounded. She saw his finger tightening on the trigger. "I said stand down," she commanded, walking closer. "I'm Special Agent Renee Daniels, FBI. That's my daughter, and you're on my property." But Briner didn't move. In that instant, Clay lunged forward, grabbing Arya and shoving her to the ground. The gun flew from her small hands and skittered across the grass. Arya screamed as she hit the dirt. Something inside Renee broke. The sound of her child crying out flipped a switch deep in her soul. She charged. Before Briner could react, she grabbed his gun arm, twisting it behind his back with practiced precision. He gasped in pain, but she didn't stop. Her shoulder drove into his ribs, slamming him to the ground. "You like hurting children," she growled, knee pressing into his spine. "How about someone your own size?" He struggled, but she had him pinned. She ripped his own cuffs from his belt and snapped them onto his wrists, locking them tight. "You're under arrest," she hissed, "for excessive force, trespassing, and animal cruelty." "You can't," he started, but her knee dug deeper into his back. "Watch me." Another officer raised his gun toward her. Renee drew her weapon instantly, aim steady. "Don't," she warned. "You're assaulting a federal agent on her own property. Stand down." The crowd gasped. Phones recorded everything. "Mom," Arya sobbed, running into her arms. Renee's free hand wrapped protectively around her daughter, keeping her close. "It's okay, baby," she whispered, never lowering her aim. Then, louder, "Everyone, drop your weapons and back away. This is now a federal investigation." "You're out of line, agent," someone yelled. "Your jurisdiction ended," Renee snapped, "the moment you pointed guns at my child." Her voice was steel. "I want every body cam file preserved now, and anyone who tampers with evidence will face federal obstruction charges." The officers hesitated. One by one, weapons lowered. Arya clung to her, trembling. "They killed Shadow, Mama," she sobbed. "He was just protecting me." "I know, baby," Renee whispered, eyes cold. "And they're going to pay for it." The street was. Chaos, sirens flashing, neighbors whispering, cameras rolling, but in the middle of it stood Renee Daniels, a mother, an agent, and a storm about to break loose. "Call your chief," she commanded, "because by morning, this department will be on fire." The men who thought they could silence her had just declared war, and Renee Daniels never lost a war. Midnight crept into the Daniels home like an uninvited guest. The flashing lights had faded. The neighbors had gone back inside. But the silence was wrong to heavy, to still. Renee sat alone in the living room, staring at Shadow's empty bed in the corner. The house used to feel warm, alive. Now it felt hollow. No clicking of claws on the floor. No soft breathing by the couch. Just absence. Upstairs, Arya cried quietly into her pillow, clutching Shadow's worn leather collar. The little metal tags jingled faintly every time she moved, a sound that tore at Renee's heart. Her phone buzzed. Police Chief Roger Martin. Renee's jaw tightened. She pressed record on her second phone, then answered. "Agent Daniels," she said coldly. "Renee." Martin's oily voice slithered through the speaker. "I wanted to reach out about this unfortunate incident." "Unfortunate." Her tone sharpened. "Your officers trespassed on my property, terrorized my daughter, and executed her dog. Choose your next words carefully, Chief." He chuckled softly. Let's not exaggerate. My officers responded to a suspicious person call. A suspicious person, Renee snapped. A 9-year-old girl playing with her dog in her own yard? There was an aggressive animal involved, Martin said smoothly. That aggressive animal was a trained service dog defending a child from armed intruders. His fake friendliness cracked slightly. Renee, I'm trying to handle this internally. For everyone's benefit. Department unity is important right now. Unity, she repeated slowly. You want me to help you cover up a civil rights violation against my daughter. I'm suggesting we handle this professionally, he said, voice tightening. Officer Breener is a decorated veteran. Officer Breener is a trigger-happy racist who's going to prison. Be reasonable. Martin insisted. These situations are complicated. Maybe we can meet for coffee, talk privately, find a solution that works for everyone. Renee's grip on the phone tightened until her knuckles went white. Are you trying to bribe a federal agent? Of course not, he said quickly. I'm just saying escalating this could hurt everyone, especially your daughter. Children can be so fragile after trauma. Wouldn't it be better to let her heal quietly? Renee's voice dropped to a deadly whisper. Are you threatening my child? Absolutely not, he replied smoothly. I'm looking out for her. These media storms can be so damaging, and your career, surely you don't want that kind of attention. She stood abruptly, pacing like a caged lion. Let me be clear, Chief. I don't care about your politics or your career. The only thing I care about is justice for my daughter. You're making a mistake, Daniels, Martin warned. This could get very unpleasant. It already is, she said. I want those body cam videos on my desk by morning. There was a long pause. Then Martin said calmly, there was an equipment malfunction. Unfortunately, no footage was captured. Renee opened her laptop, fingers flying over the keyboard. That's a lie. I saw those cameras recording. Witnesses saw the red lights. Technical issues happen, he said softly. Sometimes data is lost. Her federal login gave her access to the department's evidence server. The body cam files from that evening had been deleted less than an hour after the shooting. You're going to regret this, she said flatly. I have every log, every deletion, every name. Don't threaten me, Agent Daniels, Martin snapped, his smooth tone cracking. You're not the only one with powerful friends. I don't need friends, she said, staring at the bloodstain outside her window where Shadow had died. I have the law, and tomorrow I have a press conference. Think carefully, Martin warned. Accidents happen, even to federal agents. Was that another threat? She asked quietly. Friendly advice. She ended the call and exhaled slowly. Her hands shook, but she forced them steady. The recording would be enough to ruin him. She sat down again, opening a new file on her laptop. The deletion logs glowed on the screen, digital proof of a cover-up. They thought she'd give up. They thought she'd cry and move on. They had no idea who they were dealing with. A small sound upstairs pulled her back to reality. Arya whimpered in her sleep, trapped in another nightmare. Renee closed the laptop, went upstairs, and knelt beside her bed. Her daughter stirred, clutching Shadow's collar tighter. Mommy, she whispered, half asleep. It hurts, I know, baby, Renee whispered back, brushing her hair from her face. But I promise you Shadow didn't die for nothing. Mommy's going to make them pay. Downstairs, the laptop screen dimmed, its glow fading across the dark room. But the fire in Renee's eyes burned brighter than ever. By morning, she would walk straight into the lion's den. Morning light crept through the blinds, spilling across the kitchen table where Renee sat in silence, a cup of untouched coffee growing cold beside her. She hadn't slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Shadow fall and heard Arya scream. She had spent the entire night gathering evidence, server logs, timestamps, screen recordings, and the audio of Chief Martin's threats. By the time the sun came up, her grief had hardened into something stronger, determination. She changed into jeans and a blazer, the kind of outfit that didn't scream FBI but still carried authority. Let them underestimate her. It would make the next part easier. At the precinct, officers moved with practiced indifference. Conversations stopped as Renee walked through the doors. She could feel eyes on her back. Whispers followed. The story had already spread how an FBI agent had humiliated two of their own. The front desk sergeant didn't look up from his crossword. "Can I help you?" "I need to speak to Internal Affairs about the Oak Haven shooting," she said evenly. He scratched his chin, still not meeting her gaze. "They're pretty busy. Maybe try calling next week." "I'll wait," she replied calmly, taking a seat in one of the plastic chairs. Minutes turned into 20. Officers passed by, sneaking quick glances, whispering. A few recognized her. Most looked away. Finally, a heavy-set man in a wrinkled suit appeared. "Mrs. Daniels." "Agent Daniels," she corrected softly. He cleared his throat. "Lieutenant Parker, Internal Affairs. Follow me." They led her into a small interview room that smelled faintly of coffee and sweat. Two more officers sat inside a thin woman with sharp eyes named Detective Mills, and a younger officer, Rodriguez, who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. "Please, have a seat," Parker said, shuffling a stack of papers. "We'd just like to get your statement." Renee sat, calm and composed. "Where's the body cam footage?" she asked immediately. Mills gave a small, insincere smile. "As we explained, there were technical difficulties. I watched those cameras recording," Renee said flatly. "Neighbors saw the red lights flashing. Don't tell me there were technical difficulties." Parker sighed, spreading his hands. "Sometimes things fail. Equipment malfunctions happen. It's unfortunate, but nothing we can do." Renee leaned forward, her gaze sharp. "Then let's talk about what you can do. I want Officers Breener and Clay suspended pending investigation." Rodriguez fidgeted. Mills smirked. "That won't be necessary. Our preliminary review shows they followed department protocol." "Protocol?" Renee's voice dropped, cold as steel. "Your protocol involved shooting a child's therapy dog on private property?" "The animal displayed aggressive behavior," Mills replied, still smiling. "The dog barked once," Renee said slowly. "He was protecting a 9-year-old girl from armed men trespassing in her yard. That's not aggression, that's instinct. What your officers did was murder." Parker tried to stay calm. "Agent Daniels, I understand your anger, but our officers have to make split-second decisions, and those decisions cost an innocent life." Renee cut in. "You're not investigating. You're covering up." Mills crossed her arms. "That's a serious accusation." "Then take it seriously," Renee shot back. "Because I've got deleted footage logs, witness statements, and a recording of Chief Martin threatening my family." Rodriguez's eyes widened. Mills's fake smile faltered. "You'll want to watch your tone, Agent," Parker said. "This isn't a federal matter." Renee slowly reached into her blazer. Both men stiffened, hands twitching toward their holsters until she slammed her FBI credentials onto the table. The sound echoed. "It is now," she said. "This is a civil rights investigation. And congratulations, you're all part of it." The room fell silent. Renee stood, towering over them. Every deleted file, every falsified report, every attempt to obstruct justice is now a federal offense. "I can have a team here within the hour to recover everything you think you erased. I can subpoena every phone record, every message, every call." Parker's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Mills swallowed hard. Rodriguez looked like he wanted to disappear. "You thought you could hide behind your badges," Renee said quietly. "You thought I'd be another mother crying on the news, begging for answers. But I'm not just a mother." She leaned forward. "I'm the law, and I'm coming for every one of you." She gathered her credentials and walked toward the door. "Suspend Breener and Clay immediately. And if one more piece of evidence goes missing, I'll have your entire department raided by federal agents before sundown." "You're making a mistake," Mills called after her. Renee paused, hand on the doorknob. "No," she said without turning. "You made the mistake when you pointed a gun at my child." The hallway went silent as she walked out, her heels clicking against the floor. Officers who had mocked her the night before now stepped aside, whispering her name. Outside, sunlight hit her face, but she barely felt it. Her jaw was tight, her mind racing. They had underestimated her, and that was their biggest mistake. Renee slid into her car and smiled faintly. They'd just handed her everything she needed: federal crimes, tampered evidence, and witnesses terrified of exposure. The fight wasn't over. It had just begun. The next morning came quietly, too quietly. The sky was clear, and the sun rose over Oak Haven Drive like nothing had happened. Birds sang on the fences, sprinklers hissed, and neighbors went about their morning routines. But inside the Daniels home, peace was a stranger. Renee stood by the counter, stirring a cup of coffee she would never drink. Across the table sat Arya, her eyes swollen from crying through the night, her spoon circling in a bowl of cereal gone soggy. She hadn't spoken much since that evening. Her laughter, once so bright, had vanished. "You don't have to go today," Renee said softly. "We can take a few days off." Arya's voice was faint. "No, you said running away doesn't fix things." Renee hesitated, fighting back tears. "I know, baby. I just don't want you to face anything you're not ready for." Arya's small shoulders lifted in a shrug. "They'll talk about me anyway." Renee walked over and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "If anyone bothers you, you tell me. Immediately." "I will," Arya whispered, though she didn't sound sure. She zipped her backpack, the same one Shadow used to nuzzle every morning before she left. Her eyes lingered on his empty leash hanging by the door. For a second, her fingers brushed against it, and her lip trembled, but she turned away before Renee could see the tear that slipped down her cheek. The drive to school was silent except for the hum of the tires. When they pulled up, Arya's classmates were laughing and running in groups. A few stopped when they saw her. The laughter faded into whispers. "That's her," someone murmured. "The girl who pulled a gun on the cops." Another voice, meaner this time, said, "Heard her dog attacked a police officer." Arya kept her head down and walked past them. She didn't look back, but every word hit her like a stone. In class, the teacher smiled a little too gently, spoke too softly, and kept glancing at her with pity. That hurt more than the whispers. At lunch, Arya sat alone. The seat beside her, where her best friend Mia used to sit, stayed empty. When she took out her phone, social media exploded with half-truths and lies. Headlines read, "FBI agent's daughter points gun at officers." The comments were worse. "She's a thug in training. Her mom's just playing the race card. Should have taught that kid respect." Her chest tightened. She turned off her phone and held Shadow's worn leather collar under the table. She had hidden it in her pocket that morning, his name tag still warm from her hands. The little jingling sound was the only comfort she had left. Meanwhile, miles away in downtown Atlanta, Renee was fighting her own battle. She stood in the polished lobby of Channel 9 News, a flash drive clutched tightly in her hand. Her expression was calm, but her heart was pounding like a war drum. "Can I help you, ma'am?" the receptionist asked nervously. "I need to see whoever runs your investigative desk," Renee said firmly. Now, 10 minutes later, she was sitting in a small conference room across from Carla Greenasharp, confident journalist known for taking down corrupt politicians and police departments. Renee placed the flash drive on the table. "Everything you need is on there. Deleted body cam footage logs, dispatch audio, and a recording of Chief Martin threatening me and my daughter." Carla raised an eyebrow. "You realize this could blow up the entire department." "Good," Renee said simply. Carla hesitated. "You also realize they'll come after you for this, right?" Renee leaned forward. "They already have. I'm not the one who should be afraid anymore." Carla nodded slowly, then inserted the flash drive into her laptop. The files loaded. Her eyes widened as she scrolled through the evidence. "Jesus, they erased everything. And you have the timestamps to prove it." "I do," Renee said. "And I have witnesses. The neighbors saw everything. They recorded parts of it before the police tried to seize their phones." Carla looked up, her voice low but certain. "Renee, this is going to make headlines nationwide. Once it's out, there's no going back." "I don't want to go back," Renee said. "I just want justice for my daughter." By evening, the story broke across every major station. FBI agent accuses local police of cover-up. News anchors repeated her name again and again. The footage of Renee confronting the officers replayed in slow motion. Her voice, steady and furious, echoed across America. At home, Arya watched from the couch. She sat close to her mother, clutching her hand. "Will they go to jail, Mama?" she asked quietly. Renee looked at her, her face softening. "If there's any justice left, baby, they will." But justice didn't come easy. Late that night, a loud crash shattered the silence. Renee rushed downstairs to find the front window smashed, glass scattered across the floor. Arya screamed and ran to her side. Outside, Under the glow of the porch light, red paint dripped down the wall in ugly, angry letters. Traitor to Blue. Her heart pounded. The sound of a car engine roared in the distance before disappearing into the night. She grabbed Arya, pulling her close. It's okay, baby. I've got you. Her phone buzzed. A blocked number. She hesitated, then answered. Chief Martin's voice came through, low and mocking. You think you can humiliate this department on TV? You just declared war, Daniels. You and that little girl better watch your backs. Renee's voice was calm, but her fury simmered just below the surface. You're finished, Martin. Every word you just said is recorded. Every threat adds another felony to your name. He chuckled. You think your badge makes you untouchable. The system protects its own. You'll find that out soon enough. Maybe, she said. But I don't hide behind threats. You'll face me in the light of day and lose. The line went dead. Renee stared at the message on her wall. Rage burned behind her eyes. She turned to Arya, who was trembling but trying not to cry. We're not running, Renee said firmly. We fight. She grabbed her phone and called Agent Thompson, her partner at the FBI. Thompson. He answered groggily. I need a protective detail for my daughter, and surveillance outside my house, 24/7. They just escalated. I'll handle it, he said quickly. Are you okay? Renee glanced at the shattered glass, the dripping paint, the reflection of red letters on her floor. Not yet, she said. But I will be. An hour later, two unmarked SUVs pulled up quietly outside. Armed agents took positions near the corners of the house. Arya peeked through the blinds, eyes wide. They're here for us? They're here to keep us safe, Renee said softly, wrapping an arm around her. That night, Renee stood by the window, watching the guards in the shadows. The house felt smaller somehow, surrounded by protection, yet filled with danger. She saw the flash of a camera in the distance, someone watching from across the street. Martin wasn't finished. He was scared, and scared men did desperate things. Renee whispered to herself, You wanted a war, Chief? You've got one. And in the quiet dark, with her daughter asleep upstairs, and the night pressing against the glass, she made a promise to Shadow, to Arya, and to herself. She would burn the lies to the ground. 3 long days crawled by after the attack on their house. The Daniels home, once full of laughter and music, now felt like a bunker. Agents in black suits guarded the property. Cameras blinked at every corner, and neighbors who once waved from across the street now shut their curtains tight. When Renee walked by, she had grown used to silence, an eerie kind that hung heavy in the air, the kind that comes before a storm. Every morning, she checked the locks twice before waking Arya for school, and every night, she sat by the window, her service pistol close by, watching headlights crawl by like ghosts. The story had exploded across the country. On one side were people praising her for standing up against police corruption. On the other were those calling her a traitor, a liar, an angry black woman making trouble. Social media was a battlefield, and her name was at the center of it. Renee had seen this playbook before: discredit, distract, destroy. But she wasn't afraid. She was furious. The third morning after the vandalism, she noticed the same black SUV parked across the street again. Tinted windows, engine running, no plates. Her instincts sharpened instantly. She made a note of the time, grabbed her phone, and recorded a short clip from the window. At 8:45 a.m., as she got into her own car to head to the bureau, the SUV followed. Slow, deliberate, always 2 cars behind. She turned once, twice, 3 times. Each time it stayed with her. Her jaw tightened. She pressed a button on the dashboard. Thompson, it's Renee. I'm being tailed again. Where are you? He asked. Peachtree Avenue, heading downtown. Stay on the main roads, he instructed. We're sending a team. Before the agents could arrive, the SUV accelerated, pulling up beside her. For a second, she saw the driver, a man in a black cap, face hidden, but what chilled her was the symbol on his jacket, a faded police union patch. He lifted his hand slowly, pointed his finger like a gun, and mimed firing it. Then he smiled and sped off, disappearing into traffic. Renee's grip on the steering wheel trembled. She exhaled, steadying herself. They want me to react, she thought. They want me scared. But she had faced far worse than cowards hiding behind tinted glass. When she got home that night, Arya ran into her arms. Mom, the car was here again. I saw it. Renee's blood ran cold. You saw the same one? Arya nodded. He was sitting there for a long time. I told the agents outside, but he drove away before they came. Renee knelt and hugged her tightly. You did the right thing, baby. You're safe now. But deep down, she knew safety was slipping away. She called a late-night meeting with the FBI director the next day. Walking into his office, she looked like a storm wrapped in a suit. Her eyes were tired but unbroken. Sir, she began, I'm officially requesting full federal control over the Oak Haven case. The local police are not cooperating. They're deleting evidence and intimidating witnesses. I have proof. The director leaned back, his hands folded. You've stirred up the entire state, Renee. The governor's office is calling, the mayor's panicking, and the bureau's getting heat for letting this play out publicly. Good, she said firmly. Maybe now someone will finally listen. He sighed. You're sure you want to go through with this? They're coming for you from every side. Renee looked him dead in the eye. Sir, they came for my daughter. I don't stop now. For a moment, the old man just studied her, then finally nodded. All right, Daniels, you've got federal jurisdiction. We'll assign protection to both of you and open a joint task force. But keep your head low. These people are desperate. Renee stood, relief flickering across her face. Thank you, sir. You won't regret this. But by the next morning, the war hit back harder. Every TV screen, every headline, every phone alert screamed the same thing. FBI agent Renee Daniels under investigation for data leak. Her photo smiling from a bureau ceremony months earlier was plastered beside the words. Accused of misconduct. Renee froze in disbelief. Arya, sitting on the couch, looked up with wide, frightened eyes. Mom, are they saying you're in trouble? It's a lie, Renee said quickly, her voice tight. She grabbed her phone, calling Thompson. Renee, he answered immediately, don't freak out. This isn't official bureau news, it's planted. Someone in the precinct fed that to the press. Martin, she muttered. It's Martin. He's trying to ruin me before the investigation hits court. That's my guess too, Thompson said. He's got friends in high places who owe him favors. They're trying to make you the villain before the trial even starts. Renee's chest tightened, but her voice stayed steady. Then we'll flip the script. That evening, the harassment got bolder. A drone hovered near the house for 10 straight minutes, its red light blinking outside Arya's bedroom window. When Renee stepped outside with her badge raised, it zipped away into the night. Later, while checking the front yard cameras, she found a small device hidden near the fence, a listening bug, tucked beneath a flower pot. She held it in her palm, cold and trembling, and whispered to herself, so that's how you wanted to play. By midnight, she sat at the kitchen table again, surrounded by files, printouts, and her laptop glowing blue against the dark. Arya was asleep upstairs, clutching Shadow's collar as always. Renee took a deep breath and opened a blank document. It was time to write her statement, the one she'd deliver at the press conference tomorrow. But just as she began typing, the kitchen window shattered with a loud crash. She dropped to the floor instinctively, heart pounding, gun drawn. A brick lay on the tile, wrapped in crumpled paper. She picked it up slowly, unwrapped it, and read the words written in thick red marker, next time. It's not glass. Her breath caught in her throat. Her fingers clenched around the paper. The agents outside rushed, and seconds later, guns raised. Agent Daniels, are you hurt? I'm fine, she said, voice trembling with rage. Get forensics on that brick. I want prints, fibers, everything. When the house was secure again, she went upstairs to check on Arya. The little girl was sitting up in bed, frightened. Mommy, are we okay? Renee sat beside her, brushing her hair gently. We're okay, baby. They're just cowards trying to scare us. Are they gonna hurt us? Arya asked softly. Renee pulled her close, holding her so tight she could feel her heartbeat. No one's ever going to hurt you, do you hear me? Not while I'm breathing. As Arya drifted back to sleep, Renee stared out the window at the flashing patrol lights. She saw her own reflection, tired, furious, but unbroken. They think fear will silence me, she whispered. But fear only makes me louder. She turned back to her laptop, her fingers flying over the keys. Tomorrow, the world would hear everything. The corruption, the threats, the truth about what they had done to her daughter and her dog. And this time, she wasn't just fighting for justice, she was fighting for every voice that had ever been silenced by a badge and a lie. When dawn came, the first rays of light spilled across her desk. Her statement was finished. The war was about to reach its final chapter. Renee Daniels was done surviving. Now, she was ready to win. Morning broke with a pale light spilling across the Daniels home. The city was just waking, but inside, Renee was already dressed, standing before her mirror, fastening the small silver FBI badge to her jacket. Her reflection looked back at her, calm, composed, but underneath that calm, a fire was burning bright. This wasn't just another press conference. This was war, a war fought with truth, evidence, and courage. Downstairs, the kitchen smelled faintly of coffee and toast. Arya sat at the table, still in her pajamas, her sleepy eyes following her mother's every move. The bruised exhaustion on Renee's face was clear, but her voice remained steady when she spoke. "You sure you wanted to do this?" Thompson asked over the speakerphone, his tone lined with concern. "I don't have a choice," Renee replied, pouring coffee she wouldn't drink. "They've twisted everything, my name, my work, even my daughter's pain. If I stay silent now, they win." "Be careful, Renee," Thompson said quietly. "You've got them cornered, but cornered men bite." Renee gave a faint smile. "Then I'll make sure they choke on the truth." She turned to Arya, who was tracing circles on the table with her finger. "You'll stay with the agents today, okay, baby? Don't open the door for anyone unless it's them." Arya nodded. "Are you gonna yell at the bad men on TV?" Renee knelt beside her, smiling softly. "Not yell, sweetheart. I'm just going to tell the truth. Sometimes that's louder than yelling." "Can I watch you?" Arya asked. "Of course," Renee said, brushing her daughter's cheek gently. "You'll see mommy being brave." Outside, unmarked cars waited at the curb. Cameras were already setting up near the courthouse steps downtown. The world was waiting for the woman who had turned a quiet Georgia suburb into the epicenter of a national reckoning. As the car pulled away, Renee looked out the window at the morning sun. It reminded her of the day she took her oath at Quantico, the pride she'd felt wearing that badge for the first time. She'd believed then that justice always won. Now she knew better. Justice didn't win on its own. It needed someone willing to fight for it. Downtown Atlanta buzzed with reporters and police. Barricades lined the courthouse square. Dozens of microphones waited on a podium beneath a sea of flashing cameras. The crowd was thick: activists, reporters, families holding signs that read "Justice for Arya" and "End Police Lies." As soon as Renee stepped out of the car, the crowd erupted. Questions flew like arrows. "Agent Daniels, are the threats true? Do you still work for the Bureau? Are you accusing Chief Martin of a cover-up?" She didn't answer. Her chin lifted, her walk steady. The sound of shutters clicking filled the air like a drumbeat. Thompson met her at the entrance. "The director cleared the podium for you," he said. "No filters, no pre-approval. You'll be live on every major network." "Good," she said. "Let them hear every word." Inside, her hands shook slightly as she unfolded her notes, but her eyes were sharp, every line of her face carved with resolve. A few minutes later, she stepped up to the podium. The noise quieted instantly. Even the air seemed to hold its breath. "Good morning," she began, her voice carrying clear across the courtyard. "My name is Special Agent Renee Daniels. I'm here today not as an FBI agent, but as a mother." Cameras clicked furiously. 3 weeks ago, my 9-year-old daughter Arya was playing with her dog in our yard when the local police officers confronted her on our own property and shot her dog dead in front of her. That's the truth. It's not speculation. It's not rumor. It's fact. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Renee continued, unwavering. "When I demanded answers, I was met with lies, missing footage, and intimidation. They tried to silence me with threats, vandalism, and false stories about my work. They wanted me to break. They wanted me to disappear. But they forgot one thing." She paused, eyes locked on the cameras. "You can't scare a mother who's already lost everything." The crowd cheered softly, but she raised a hand for silence. "I stand here today because justice isn't a slogan. It's a promise, one this country has forgotten how to keep." My daughter watched her best friend die because someone saw her skin before they saw her innocence. And when I tried to hold them accountable, they tried to erase the truth. She reached into her folder and held up a series of printed logs. These are the official deletion records from the Oak Haven Police Department. The body cam footage from that night didn't vanish. It was deliberately erased within 45 minutes of the shooting. Gasps rippled through the reporters. Flashbulbs burst in rapid succession. I also have a recording, Renee said, her voice like steel, of Police Chief Roger Martin threatening me and my daughter. In that call, he said, and I quote, "You and your kid better watch your backs." That's the kind of leadership protecting this city. The crowd roared in outrage. Reporters shouted for copies of the recording, but Renee wasn't finished. "This is not just about me," she said, voice rising with emotion. "This is about every parent who's been told to stay quiet. Every family who's buried their loved one under the weight of a badge and a lie. We are done being silent." Behind her, a group of community leaders held up posters of victims from other cities, names that filled the air like echoes. Renee took a breath, steadying herself. "I have faith in the Bureau, in good officers who do their jobs with honor. But this corruption is not policing. It's cowardice." Reporters clapped softly, some even standing. Renee's hands trembled as she gripped the podium tighter. "I will not stop until every person who tampered with evidence, who hid behind procedure to justify cruelty, stands before a judge. Not because I want revenge, but because my daughter deserves to grow up in a world where the people with guns and badges protect children, not traumatize them." She looked directly into the nearest camera. "You wanted the truth. Here it is. And I won't stop until the system that tried to silence me is the one standing on trial." The crowd erupted into thunderous applause. Renee stepped down slowly, tears welling in her eyes. Thompson was waiting near the steps, pride written all over his face. "That was one hell of a speech," he said quietly. "She deserved it," Renee replied, glancing at the sky. "They all do." As she walked back toward the car, reporters swarmed again. "Agent Daniels, what will you do next?" She paused, her voice calm but firm. "Next, I'll make sure Chief Martin and his men never wear a badge again." Just then, her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Nice speech, but it's not over." Her jaw clenched. She showed it to Thompson. "Trace it." He nodded, already dialing. "We'll find out who sent it." Back home, Arya sat cross-legged in front of the television, watching her mother's face fill the screen. Her small fingers clutched Shadow's collar as she whispered, "You did it, Mama." But outside, beyond the flashing patrol lights and cameras, the men she had exposed were watching too, angry, cornered, and dangerous. That night, as rain began to fall softly across the city, Renee stood by the window again. She should have felt relief. The truth was finally out. But in her gut, she knew this was just the calm before the storm. Because the moment truth threatens power, power always strikes back. And this time, it would hit closer than she ever imagined. The rain that night didn't stop. It came down hard, tapping against the windows like impatient fingers. The house felt smaller somehow, filled with the soft hum of tension that never really went away. Renee sat in her office, surrounded by open folders, press requests, and federal paperwork. The walls were covered with photos, notes, and strings connecting names and dates. Her private war map. She knew this battle wasn't over. When you drag corruption into the light, it doesn't die quietly. It fights back, meaner than ever. Outside, the agents stationed at her house stood alert, jackets soaked under the downpour. The porch light flickered as thunder rumbled in the distance. Arya was asleep upstairs, her small frame curled beneath a blanket. Shadow's collar clutched against her chest. Even in sleep, she sometimes whimpered, reliving the sound of the gunshot that had ended her best friend's life. Renee rubbed her temples. She'd spent the evening going over the Bureau's new task force files. Chief Martin was under internal review, but not arrested yet. They said they needed more evidence. But she knew what that meant. The politics had started. The old men in power were buying time, hoping the fire would burn itself out. A knock at the door pulled her from her thoughts. It was Thompson. He stepped in, water dripping from his coat. "You should sleep," he said quietly. Renee smirked faintly. I'll sleep when Martin's in handcuffs. Thompson sighed, handing her a file. Then this will help. She opened it, scanning the pages quickly. At first, she thought it was a mistake. Then her heart dropped. Are you sure this is real? She asked, voice low. Positive, Thompson said. Internal Affairs found a hidden server. Guess what was stored on it? Her eyes widened. The deleted body cam footage. He nodded, every second of it. Renee's pulse quickened. Send me a copy. I already did. You need to see it yourself. She opened her laptop, inserted the drive, and pressed play. The video began with static, then cleared. Two officers, Breener and Clay, stepped out of their cruiser, walking toward Arya's yard. She could hear their voices, calm at first, then growing sharper. Arya's small voice trembled in the background, explaining she lived there. Then came Brenner's words, step away from the dog. Shadow barked once. A flash, 3 gunshots. The dog's body fell out of frame. Arya screamed. Renee's throat tightened as she watched her little girl kneel beside Shadow, sobbing. You killed him. She shouted at them. And then came the part they hadn't expected to see. Breener turning toward his partner, sneering. Should have shot her too before Mommy showed up. Thompson looked away. Renee froze, fury flooding her veins. That was it. The final nail. Get me the director, she said. Now, within an hour, the Bureau launched a federal arrest order for Chief Martin, Breener, and everyone involved in tampering with evidence. By dawn, their homes were swarming with agents. When Martin was led out of his house in handcuffs, reporters were already there, shouting questions. His smug face was gone, replaced with something smaller, hollow. For the first time, he looked afraid. At the same moment, Renee and Thompson watched from the command center. On one screen, officers were being escorted out. On another, Arya's footage from the yard looped silently, the proof of everything they'd endured. You did it, Thompson said softly. Renee exhaled, her eyes fixed on the screen. No, she said. We did. She went home later that morning. The sun had finally come out, shining across the wet streets, like the world had been washed clean. Arya ran to the door before she even parked. Mama, she cried, throwing her arms around her waist. Did the bad men go to jail? Renee smiled for the first time in weeks. They did, baby, and they're never going to hurt anyone again. Arya's eyes glistened. Shadow can rest now, right? Renee knelt, pressing her forehead against her daughter's. Yes, sweetheart, he can rest, and so can we. That afternoon, Renee stood before a small wooden box under the oak tree in their backyard. Shadow's grave. Arya had planted wildflowers around it, tiny purple blooms reaching toward the sky. The wind moved softly through the branches above them. He was brave, Arya whispered. He didn't let them touch me. Renee swallowed hard. He did what he was meant to do. He protected you. And because of him, the truth came out. They stood there for a long time in silence. The kind of silence that doesn't hurt, the kind that heals. By evening, news stations across the country were showing the footage. Commentators who had doubted her were now calling her a hero. The Department of Justice announced a full-scale investigation into police corruption in Georgia. And for the first time in her career, Renee didn't feel like an agent serving the law. She felt like a mother who had forced the world to see her child's pain and refused to let it be ignored. Later that night, she and Arya sat on the porch steps, watching the sunset. The sky blazed orange and pink, the colors melting into gold. Arya leaned her head against her mother's shoulder. Do you miss Daddy? She asked softly. Renee smiled faintly. Every day. Do you think he saw what happened? I think he did, Renee said. And I think he's proud of you. You were braver than most grown-ups. Arya was quiet for a moment. I wasn't brave. I was just mad. Renee laughed softly. That's how bravery starts. The little girl's eyes lifted toward the fading sun. Mama, yes, baby. Can we get another dog one day? Renee hesitated. The thought of replacing Shadow hurt, but she also knew Shadow wouldn't have wanted Arya to grow up afraid to love again. One day, she said finally, when we're both ready. Arya nodded, satisfied. For the first time in weeks, Renee felt something lift from her shoulders. The weight of fear, anger, and loss beginning to fade. The battle wasn't over. Justice never truly ended. But tonight, for once, there was peace. The porch light flickered as the last bit of daylight disappeared. Somewhere in the distance, a siren wailed, not menacing, just part of the city's heartbeat. Renee closed her eyes and let the sound fade into the wind. Tomorrow, there would be hearings, press interviews, and investigations. But tonight, there was quiet. Tonight, there was her daughter's laughter echoing softly through the yard. As they went inside, the wind rustled the flowers over Shadow's grave, carrying with it the faintest jingle of his old collar. Renee paused, smiling faintly. "Good boy," she whispered into the dark. Then she closed the door. Epilogue short closing note. Months later, the Department of Justice released its report. Multiple officers were convicted of evidence tampering and excessive force. Chief Martin was sentenced to prison. The Oak Haven Police Department was disbanded and rebuilt from the ground up. Renee returned to work, but on her own terms. She started a new division dedicated to police accountability, named the Shadow Initiative, in honor of the dog who started it all. Arya grew stronger with time. Her nightmares faded, replaced with dreams of open fields and wagging tails. And on one spring afternoon, as Renee watched her daughter laugh while tossing a ball to a new puppy bounding through the grass, she realized something. Justice wasn't just about punishment. It was about restoration, about standing up again and again until the truth had a voice louder than the lies. The world still had darkness, but now she knew one mother's light could be enough to pierce it.